Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mountaineer Bushcraft and Survival System. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make your own batwood. I'm going to be using just little hunks of pine, and we're also going to use some dryer lint to make some fire starters with. We got a little camp stove here, a little 1 pound propane tank on it. I'll just use this old can here to put on the stove in lieu of a pot or a pan or something of that nature. We're going to just be simply taking these apart and putting the wax in the container, and we'll melt that into a liquid. So I'll get everything prepped up here and get back to you once we get ready to turn the fire on. Okay, we are ready to get the fire going here. Now this part here is going to take a while because this wax will all have to get hot enough to eventually turn into liquid, and I'm probably also going to have to add some more to bring the level up higher in the can. And you want to be careful using the propane because it does get quite a bit hotter than natural gas. There we go. Put that on low. But the method is going to be quite simple to do this. After the wax melts and it just about gets to the point where it's starting to look like it's going to boil, slowly, carefully add your pieces of pine into it. And these are a bit on the short side, that way they'll fit in the can. Once these are in there, you'll start to finally see some foam and bubbling. So you got to keep in mind that that's going to be an issue. Don't overfill this container because it will get kind of foamy and bubbly once you put the wood in because of the moisture. And what will happen, that wax will impregnate the pine and it'll go all the way into it. And it'll fill all the voids inside that wood where there was air and moisture with the wax. And at that point, you pretty much have a homemade version of fat wood. If you have trouble in your area not being able to get any out of pine, and you'll treat these little pieces just like you would your standard fat wood. You can shave all these little pieces off of it, and once you ignite them, they'll ignite quite easily and they'll burn quite a bit longer due to the wax. It'll somewhat act like a bit of a candle. So you'd be so inclined, you can take a little sliver off that little chunk sticking out there on that side of the knife, batten that little sliver off, like the tip of it, and you'll have a bit of a match that way. All right, we're starting to melt down. But it's definitely going to take quite a bit more bits and pieces of wax to get that up to the level I need it. So I'll get this thing to the point where we can add our wood to it, and I'll come back to you. Okay, all of our our wax is melted. Starting to see some bubbles forming down there at the bottom. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to completely fill this vessel. You have to leave some space because once you put your wood pieces in there, it's going to take up more room and it's going to force the liquid level up. And we're trying to prevent boiling it over or it foaming up and out, because it will ignite if it starts coming over the side of that can, and that raw flame hits it. It very well could cause a fire, and yeah, you don't want that, especially if you're doing this in a house, which I don't recommend you do. And try to, if you can, for the container, get like a small, preferably a taller but smaller diameter steel pot if you can find it, because the volume being in a taller can, you'll have to use less wax. That way you can completely submerge your pieces. And you want to just get a cheap pair of those pliers to help fish your pieces out of there. So let's go ahead and start getting some more pieces in there. Okay, that's got our fluid level up enough where I'm going to stop at that. Now this comes the weight. That's basically what you're going to do. You're going to wait till you don't got hardly any bubbles and foam. Of course, ideally, if you could set some pieces of pine aside and let them dry out for quite a while, get them good and dry, will really help this process along. It'll be far less foaming and bubbles. That, and I also got a really old, crappy, cheap dollar store stainless steel butter knife here to help manage the wooden pieces in here. Of course, this is about as exciting as watching paint dry while you're doing it, but you can get yourself some pretty useful fire starting material if you take the time and effort to make this. And I can't tell you exactly how long it takes. It depends on how wet your wood is when you started. I mean, I really recommend you don't do this with fresh pine. You don't want them kind of troubles. However, since this is liquefied, what we can do, let's go ahead and take our dryer lint here and get it submerged in wax. Grab our multi-tool. Now I'm just going to take a chunk. And I'm kind of just looking for, like about a cotton ball size piece of material here. Of course, you can leave it flat if you want. If you want to keep it in just like a sheet form, that way while you're out there, you can just rip off little hunks. And I'm going to take this little aluminum piece. There we go. Just quick dips, all that takes. Let that stop dripping. And we'll lay her right in there to dry. That's all that took right there. And that will greatly increase the burn time on that. If you can hear it starting to get a little excited in there, she's starting to boil pretty good. Now's the time I need to keep a real good eye on that, because I don't want that to blow over on me. Maybe get any wax on your pliers, especially if it's a multi-tool you carry. You can keep a rag or something with you and just wipe it off once while it's still good and liquefied on there. Or, get a cheap pair of needle nose pliers from a dollar store or something like that. Turn our heat down a little more if I can. Seems that's about as low as she's going to go. So basically what we're dealing with now is it's practically doing a rolling boil. That wax is incredibly hot right now. Yeah, well, I'll take you in there for a little bit of a close up on that so y'all can see the action in the can a little bit. And that's what it looks like while she's going. And that top of that one piece, you can literally see those little bubbles coming in and out. That's what little bit of moisture is inside that stick getting pushed out and being replaced by that boiling wax. All right. I think our pieces are pretty well done. Another thing you'll notice, they don't bob around quite as much. The larger piece, when we stuck it up here, was floating up quite high. Now she's just barely bobbing, but it's picked up a lot of extra weight from the wax that's impregnated it. And all of our other pieces are pretty well not bobbing anymore. And I've got the only bubbles I got is from the wax itself that's boiling. I got no more foam. We'll pull this piece here out. We'll set it aside on our cardboard. Get the big piece out. For two small pieces. If I can turn that fire off now. These two smaller pieces are definitely complete. Now they just need to sit there and take a few minutes to dry off. We'll wipe the excess wax off my multi-tool. And that large wad of lint, we managed to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. And I saved the little aluminum holders the tea light candles came in, because typically when I use these, I'll keep this with it if possible. And as that wax melts from the heat, it'll stay inside that little bowl and it won't just spread out and dissipate quite so rapidly, and you get a good bit longer burn that way. And once this completely hardens up, these are so flimsy. I mean, you can slightly mush it around it to make it more compact. She's still pretty hot, but this is pretty well saturated. Now you can also you can batten this down more, or take a hatchet, however you want to do it. Make it into smaller pieces if you like, or carry it like this. Probably if you're out during like the summer, I'm sure it'll sweat a little bit of wax out. So maybe put these in little Ziploc bags, something of that nature, help keep your gear from getting wax on it. And these little pieces are quite easy to figure out, some means of carrying with you, nice and small. You can shave a respectable size sliver off that and just light the end of it with a cigarette lighter, and you basically got a match. And that is so small. I do wager I could do that simply with a pocket knife. Yep. Not a problem. Shave a little small piece. Now this was just a branch off a pine tree, and it had very little resin in it. This was not fat wood. But since now it's saturated with that wax, it's going to burn similar to fat wood. Though I will tell you this for truth, this does not burn as hot as real fat wood, but it is a nice flame extender, and it will definitely work and help you get a stubborn fire started. And like this little leftover sliver I got here, I mean, you don't have to use tiny pieces like that. You can make a couple of small slivers, get a couple started, and add a nut just like this leftover piece, and that'll be a bigger, longer lasting fire. All right, with that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I do appreciate your time. And everybody, have a good afternoon.